They were funneling money to their own bank accounts.
Yeah. If the story were to stop there, this probably would be a great company.
This shows how unbelievably savvy he is. He sort of realized he couldn't build the business.
Well, he is effing smart, according to him.
He could not build the business that he wanted to without doing this.
So Lay's now settled in. He's in charge. He's the chairman. He's the CEO. And he decides that he wants to get a new name for this company, HNG Internorth, that it sounds too old and, it's reeking of his predecessor.
And it is true that all these energy companies had just the worst names. I mean, it's all these completely meaningless prefixes and suffixes like co and corp and inter. And it's like in Office Space, Intertech. They're all named something like that.
Yes. Well, maybe this is the beginning of the modern era of that, because they go and they hire very expensive naming and branding consultants. The logo would actually come a little later, but including a few years later, Paul Rand would design the Enron logo. This would be the last logo that the legendary Paul Rand designed before he died.
He, of course, designed the IBM logo, the Next logo, the UPS logo, maybe.
And he very much has his style. You think the IBM logo, or if you know the Next logo, Steve Jobs is Next, the Enron logo, they're all kind of in the same style.
ABC, Yale Press, Westinghouse.
Oh, Westinghouse.
Yeah.
My grandfather worked for Westinghouse.
Really?
Yeah. Legendary. Enron would be the last logo he designed before he died. Oof, what a legacy. So the naming consultants, separate from Paul, they come up with a brilliant new idea for the company. They want to name it Enron.
Almost.
Lay loves it. The board loves it. Lay loves it. Everybody's so excited. They announce the name. And the name comes from, it's a portmanteau, N-E-N for energy, T-E-R as a nod to Internorth. Get that, legacy back in there. And then on at the end because it sounds cool and modern. Enron. So they announce it. They didn't check, though, that in the dictionary, because Enteron is actually a medical term. It is a word. It is a medical term. It comes from a Greek word, and it means the intestinal digestive tract of a living creature and is particularly used for embryos. So the digestive tract of embryos is an enteron. So they kind of get pilloried in the press for this. Lay, he's so concerned about appearances, political, he goes nuts. Lay never loses his cool, as we'll see throughout this story. He loses his cool here. He goes completely ballistic, yelling at the naming consultants. Everybody demands that they do another study, change it. And so they come back and they're like, well, what if we just get rid of the ter and we shorten it to Enron? Which Lay probably loves, because he's like, yeah, I hate those guys. Those are the old guys. Get rid of them. So he ends up getting exactly what he wants. Headquarters moves to Houston. He's the CEO and chairman. Enron, future looking, it's his baby. It's a refounding, new story, new era for the energy industry.
Yep. So that's sort of the end of chapter 1. You get this merger. They're real pipeline companies. They've got hard assets. They have sort of a new corporate culture with a new leader, and they're delivering real value to customers.
Yep. And they're running the proto-trading playbook that Lay pioneered back in his early days. And pretty quickly after this, they actually face their first trading scandal. Did you read about this?
I did. It's such a predecessor. It's such an obvious personality flaw of Ken Lay's to look the other way. And it's amazing that it happened, 10 years before the big scandal.
So 2 traders at the new Enron, who are actually based in New York, they start embezzling money from the company. They're filing fake trades. They're filing fake tax returns. They're creating false bank accounts. They have a false bank account famously, I think, in the name of a Mr. M. Yass, which clearly this will give you a window into the sophomoric nature of traders and trading cultures.
Just write that out and figure it out for yourself.
So the company picks up on this. It comes to Lay's attention, and everybody recommends the company's auditors at Arthur Andersen, recommended the board.
The premier accounting firm of the day.
Premier Big Five accounting firm at the time. They recommend that Lay and the company should fire these guys. Obviously, they're stealing from the company. They're falsifying trades. And Lay's like, well, these guys, it's really bad. It's bad what they did. We should censor them for sure. We should set up some controls, make sure this doesn't happen again. But they're really good traders. They've really made a lot of money for the firm. I don't think we should fire them. That feels like a big step. And everybody's like, okay.
They were funneling money to their own bank accounts.
Yeah. But Lay lets it slide. And he is immediately rewarded for his faith in them and his decision here. Almost immediately, they do what any sophomoric people in a situation like that would do who just got away with one. They go way risk on. So they go on tilt and they rack up within the next few months almost $1 billion. One B, that's a B, $1 billion. This is in the late 80s of trading losses, which that would be enough to bring down the whole firm at the get-go.
Well, and you got to think the enterprise value of the combined company, I don't have it in front of me, but you had a $5-ish billion company buy a $2.5-ish billion company. And so, whole enterprise value of the firm can't be more than $10 billion.
And these two bozos just racked up $1 billion in trading losses. This time, Lay does fire them. And fortunately for young Enron and for Lay, but unfortunately for the rest of the world, this happens early enough in the quarter that the trading floor is able to dig out enough of these losses that they don't have to report the whole $1 billion loss come earnings time and only end up reporting, I think, less than $100 million of losses. So the company miraculously survives. So you would think that Lay would learn his lesson here, but no, this is Kenneth Lay we're dealing with.
And let's for a moment say, why are there traders? That's sort of an interesting thing that's happening here. I thought this was a pipeline company. I thought this was a logistics company that moved natural gas from one place to another and charged customers for the services associated with that. Well, the traders originally are there, to your point, to sort of help match supply to demand. It's not like everybody just got a computer in front of them where they can automatically be buying the right products to fit their needs at the right price at this moment in time. You sort of need to interface with people. And those people can quote spreads wherever they want. They can say, I got a seller for this price, and you're the buyer, and I'm sort of sensing that you'll buy for that price. Okay, I'll make supply to demand. I'll quote a spread where I think I can make the most possible money on this trade, and we'll go with that. And so this is the beginning of them being both a logistics, energy transportation company, and also a financial organization of sorts, a trading desk.
Yes, a trading desk, a proto financial institution for the energy industry.
Yep.
So, speaking of, back to Houston and the promised McKinsey strategic engagement. It's happening. Jeff Skilling is lead hotshot partner to develop a strategic plan for this very thing, the new finance and trading operations of Enron. And one day, Skilling has a absolutely brilliant idea, brilliant by his own estimation, and he proclaims it to everybody how brilliant it is. What if Enron goes one step further from Lay's kind of original innovation of creating a spot market for energy, and rather than just being sort of the facilitator of the market, being the pipeline in the middle, what if Enron started acting even more like an investment bank in this industry? And the phrase that he uses for this idea is Enron becoming a, quote, bank for gas. And the idea is that they can go to oil and gas producers, to drillers, and they can buy up a lot of the future production that's going to come out of their wells, kind of almost like the old companies used to do. But rather than Enron then being the customer for what's going to come out of those wells, they repackage everything here. This is the securitization that you were talking about a minute ago, Ben. They repackage all of these future energy commodities. They slice it and dice it, and then they resell it to buyers, to consumers of energy, on kind of whatever timeline and term length they wanted. So we've gone now the industry from the pipelines, buy the assets from the producers, buy the energy commodities from the producers, and then sell them to customers. Lay's innovation is like create a market where you let the producers and the customers trade directly today.
In real-time spot markets where everyone is subject to, I don't know what tomorrow's price is going to be, I'll quote it to you tomorrow. So you have inherent risk that tomorrow's price could be higher. So sorry, but that is what it is.
Yep. So Skilling's innovation here is let's turn this into a full-fledged kind of financial derivatives market and let buyers and sellers write contracts and buy contracts for any amount of this commodity in the future at a set price. So true futures contracts.
And the most sort of early legitimate use case for this is, imagine you are a local utility who's trying to provide natural gas to your town, and you've been using this great spot market that Enron stood up to figure out, what's the price going to be tomorrow. You're pretty worried about it skyrocketing in the event of some unknown black swan event or something like that. So wouldn't it be nice if you could hedge your exposure to that risk by also negotiating a futures contract where you say, well, let me lock in a certain rate. And yeah, I know it's going to be more expensive than it is now, but at least nothing bad can happen. And then I can sort of be predictable in the way that I'm thinking about what my spend's going to be over the next 3 months. So that's like a super legitimate use case of one of these futures contracts that they could, trade using Enron.
You can imagine all sorts of utility here.
Yep.
So Enron does it. They pioneer this market that would come to be known and is, I think and assume still a very, very large part of the energy market today, called energy derivatives. Skilling and Enron invent it and pioneer it.
And at this point, the energy is the underlying asset. The derivative itself is not particularly interesting other than its own utility for if you are actually buying or selling the underlying asset. That's like an important thing to note. Everyone will lose their heads later and get excited about the derivative on its own. Like, they don't care what it's a derivative of. It's a tradable thing that numbers go up, numbers go down. It reminds me a lot of some of crypto over the last year. It's like trading Dogecoin.
Right. Does anybody even know what this coin is or is supposed to do? Does anybody care?
No, but I can speculate on it. And so there is a very interesting, almost innocent early beginning of why you would offer energy derivatives that completely falls apart over time as everyone loses their head. And Skilling's still outside, right? When he pitches this idea.
He's still at Mckinsey at this point. Yes, for the moment. And still in this next thing, they realize, this is a new concept they need to bring to the market. How are they going to bootstrap up this new derivatives market? Well, they kind of need the producers to get on board. They need to get the supply, the raw supply that they can then financialize, securitize, turn into these derivatives. And the way that they can really convince producers to want to do this is if they fund them. So just like an investment bank, they now start going out and doing these development deals and co-development deals with drillers saying, hey, we'll fund you. We will finance your exploration, your drilling. And as part of financing that, Enron is going to lock up the rights to then securitize the future production out of your assets.
Which again, on its own, not a malicious strategy. Think about our Qualcomm episode. Hey, Sony, will you spin up a new venture that we'll co-invest in to make flip phones that use CDMA so we can prove to everyone else in the market that CDMA is a viable technology? We'll invest in it. You just have to provide these strategic assets. You can own half of it, blah, blah, blah. It is a common way to bootstrap an ecosystem to use your dollars to incentivize other participants to bring a thing into your ecosystem.
And, honestly, like if the story were to stop there, this probably would be a great company. Bringing huge innovation to a commodity market. Yeah, probably this market should work this way. It should be financialized and securitized. Energy assets are commodities.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that is not where the story ends. Far, far, far from it. So 1990, now we're a couple years into the Lay-Enron era. And Lay and the vice chairman of the company, a guy named Rich Kinder, who later would leave Enron before all the dirt hits the fan and start Kinder Morgan.
You can think of Rich Kinder for now as the hard assets guy. He's the guy that really understands the intrinsic value of delivering hydrocarbons through a pipe to customers and trying to build a company that is just executing really well on doing that.
Yes. So the two of them, they work on convincing Skilling. They think this is a big idea and this is the future of Enron. They work on convincing Skilling to leave McKinsey and come over and join Enron as the full-time CEO of this new gas bank that they're going to call the Enron Finance Division. And in a very telling move, tells you a lot about what you need to know about Jeff Skilling as a person. They're talking about this, they're negotiating. He decides he wants to take them up on the offer. He's going to leave McKinsey. He calls them up to do the final negotiations of the terms of his offer. He calls them up from the hospital where he is with his wife while his wife is in labor with their, I think, second child. That tells you where his priorities lie. Obviously, that marriage does not last too much longer.
I love you say obviously there.
Yeah, obviously. Obviously. So Skilling comes in, he takes over Enron Finance, starts this new division.
It is worth pointing out the thing that he made a necessary condition in order for him to join and do this. Do you know what that thing is?
Ooh, I don't.
It was that Jeff Skilling insisted that in order to join Enron and start this new division, Ken Lay and the board had to agree to use mark-to-market accounting.
I did not realize that Skilling was looking that far ahead and made it a condition of his joining.
This shows how unbelievably savvy he is. He sort of realized he couldn't build the business.
Well, he is effing smart, according to him.
He could not build the business that he wanted to without doing this. He literally called it, and this is in The Smartest Guys in the Room, a lay my body across the tracks issue about joining the company.
I wonder if he talked about it from the delivery room.
Awful. So what is mark-to-market accounting? Because we'll get into this a bunch, but let's understand it conceptually.
Yeah. It ends up taking a while for Enron to be able to implement this that we'll get into, but go for it.
So normally, if you're in the business of delivering gas to customers who will pay for it, you account for the cost that it takes to physically move the gas when you deliver it, at the time you're delivering it, and the cash that your customers pay you, that's your revenue. And you recognize that when they pay you. But imagine you're in a different business, like trading stocks. You probably should be accounting for the market value of everything you buy and sell, whether or not you have actually sold it. Like if you bought Tesla at $20 a share and it's now worth $200 a share, you should reflect that you have a gain, albeit an unrealized one. This is mark-to-market accounting.
And famously, all VCs do this, right? You talk about marks, of your portfolio.
Right. Company raise an up round from a third party who's setting a new price. That is what the market is saying this asset is worth. And you get to account for that value, even though you haven't actually received the cash. Just because you haven't sold your Tesla shares, it doesn't mean that you don't have an unrealized gain. Or just because the VC hasn't realized the liquidity event from that company, it doesn't mean that the company's not worth more. So Skilling obviously really wanted this mark-to-market treatment. And while you can imagine that it's probably easy to abuse mark-to-market accounting rules, it is probably okay if you can avoid the temptation. But it is worth pointing out that Enron, when they did adopt this, became the very first non-financial company to use this method.
Let's just say the potential for a litany of abuses high, very, very high, especially for what is an operating company, not actually a financial firm.
Yeah. Mark-to-market accounting to me is the epitome of with great power comes great responsibility, because it really does open up this question of like, okay, well, what is the market price? And how do you discover the true market price of something? When someone's not paying you for it and giving you the cash, doesn't it seem a little squishy to say what the thing is actually worth?
Oh, put a pin in that. We're gonna
Right.
we're gonna come back to that.
Who got the truth? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Sit me down, say it straight. Another story on the way. Who got the truth? Who got the truth now?